Hello, my friend. This is Heather. Welcome to another episode of the Back to Me podcast. And this week I'm talking to Nicola Mercer, and we're talking about habits. And don't go, oh, I hate trying to change my habits. We're not talking about the impossible. We're talking about how to create the life you want. And really, all habits are is being consistent. So have a listen. Let me know what you think. And I hope you're having an awesome day. See you soon. Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. Hello, my friend. How are you? I hope you're having an outstanding day. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is the amazing Celebrity Chat edition where I get to talk to an awesome human being about something that they know lots about and that I think you want to know more about because I definitely want to know more about. And today we're talking to Nicola?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I screwed up the easiest name. Oh, how are you? How are you? Welcome.
Hi, Heather. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. It's fine. I know in America it's usually pronounced Nicola, but yeah, Nicola.
Nicola Mercer. And you are Life Now Coaching. And I like that kind of the way my brain says, yes, now is what we need to deal with, right? And how we are now instead of living in how we were before. I've been thinking about that a
Yeah,
lot lately.
yeah, exactly. And it's about the now because a lot of people focus on what they want to have to feel happy and fulfilled and successful, satisfied, whatever it might be that you're searching for. So many people focus everything on that thing they haven't yet got and that they want and that they think is going to complete them and give them, usually it's happiness, isn't it, that they're looking
Yeah.
for. And I'm really about trying to, yes, have goals and want to make changes and work towards things that are going to make your life better, but at the same time enjoying the journey that you are on, and really making sure that you are more present and you're noticing the things that are happening in your life every day, because it's often those things that are overlooked which actually can really be the key to true happiness and fulfillment.
Right. It's so true that often the thing we think we want may not, we might get it and think, oh, actually, that's not what I wanted. But you had so many gems along the way and things that happened and amazing experiences, but you were so focused on that thing that you missed it. So that's an awesome point. I I'm always curious, and this is something that I think I always ask at the beginning. It's like, how did you start into this Life Now coaching? What drew you into coaching?
So I worked in corporate for about 24 years until last year, and I was made redundant from
Okay.
Nike, where I'd worked for 20 years.
Wow.
And, in Nike, I was doing lots of different roles, lots of coaching and leading teams and mentoring, which I really enjoyed. I did a lot of project work and strategic development, things like that. And when the redundancy came about, I had no plan B for what I was going to do next. The only thing I'd ever wanted to do was write. And I had this dream of writing a fiction novel, which still is one of my dreams. Um, so I thought, right, I'm going to write about the redundancy journey and I'm going to set up a blog. And I had no idea how to do a blog. So I set myself an Instagram account up the day after I was made redundant called Life After Swoosh, because Swoosh is obviously the thing that people often call a tick, but you know, the Nike branding that you see on all of the trainers and products. And
Yeah.
I thought, great, life after swoosh. This is the story of what happens to me after leaving Nike. And I quickly realized within a few weeks that I didn't really have that much content. It became apparent that the redundancy was going to have a very different outcome to what I initially thought. You know, I'd seen it as something that was going to be life changing, but probably in quite a negative way
Mm.
because I was the main earner at the time. You know, I wasn't ready to leave. It came about as a bit of a shock. And yeah, it just kind of evolved from there as I thought about what it was I was going to do from a work point of view. And I knew I didn't want to go back into a corporate environment. I knew I wanted to stay doing something that connected to what I loved at Nike, which was helping people to live better, you know, through sport. Obviously, at Nike, it was very much about moving your body and everybody
Right.
being an athlete, and you know the power of sport that it has to bring people together, not just when you are, you know, a professional or semi-professional athlete, but you know what you see when people do gather together as a community when they're interested in you know, connected in wanting their team to win or the person they support and so on. And so it was just adding all of the pieces together through what I enjoyed at Nike, what I was good at from a practical point of view, skill set wise, but also what I wanted for my future. And that was very much about helping to make other people live a better life, especially for women and kids, because I knew through the work I did at Nike that kids have a huge life span risk because of the way they live now in our culture, very
Right.
sedentary, you
Yeah.
know, and that is really for the first time ever, meaning that we have a generation who are potentially going to have a lower life expectancy than any other generation for hundreds of years, which is this very scary thought. So, you know, was putting all of those pieces together that I then thought, right, I want to do something to do with coaching and health and helping women, because I really do believe women are still the primary role model for kids, you know, to help build a healthier lifestyle. So the life after swoosh became life now because I realized I was defining myself what had been before. And I was
Right.
focusing on that history I had and who I was, and being part of that company for 20 years meant I had, you know, I had so much invested in that, and I'd become a person who, you know, saw herself as an employee of Nike, you know, like you do when you're part of an organization for such a long length of time. And so it was a real clean break to focus on the now rather than what had been. And yeah, that's how it all came about.
And it's so good that you could recognize the things within it that you liked and that you could implement or continue to develop and use those things, because often when people are in jobs or careers that they've chosen, that fully defines them, right? That's who I am. When you ask people
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hi, nice to meet you," what they always say, "What do you do? Where do you are like, who are you? What?" And that's how you define yourself. So, especially having been where somewhere so long, good for you.
Mm.
I only ever lasted 7 years in one spot, but so it's entrenched in who you are and your identity. And then when it's no more, and you see this when people retire, it's like, now what? Now what do I do?
Mm.
So good on you that you. I mean, you started with your. Yeah, I guess you just renamed your blog, and then kept going, or
Yeah, well, I started to write, and I wrote about not having a plan B and a few other things related to how I was feeling at the time. And it was quite cathartic, actually, to put it down in words. And yeah, I realized that this is what I was going to do. And actually, the writing could become part of this new business. And so, you know, within a few months, I changed the Instagram to Life Now Coaching from Life After Swoosh. And I hadn't put the blog out there because I hadn't quite worked out how to get it, you
it's
know,
just more
out.
like journaling for you, right?
Yeah, it
Working
was.
through
And
things.
I'd set up a website, but I didn't really know what the website was for except the blog. So I, just put it on hold and then eventually made it the business website. So it all came together really well. And starting those blogs the way I did has actually set up kind of the precedence for the way I blog now, because people blog in very different ways, don't they? And although now I write quite frequently about wellness topics, they're always linked to me. There's definitely a story there. So the book might not be fiction, the first one I put out anyway, but a non-fiction book is definitely in my plans. And I think the blogs are really lending themselves to being that, nice balance of who I am and how I've got to where I am, but also the support, encouragement, advice, inspiration for others to build their own healthy lifestyle.
Right, that's very true.
Mm.
It's funny that you want to write a fiction book. I talked to a woman a few months ago who wrote a book called You Can't Eat Love, but she had also written a fiction book during the pandemic about zombies. So I was like, I guess
Very different.
yeah, very different, very different. Now I know that because we were talking about movement, and it's so true. I mean, I have nieces and nephews, and I can remember, I'm not going to name names, one of them when were quite young, they spent most of their time playing on the computer, which is so engrossing and it's designed to keep you there. And I just thought, oh my gosh, you need to go outside and play because they are becoming quite sedentary. And I wonder sometimes, I mean, somebody I'm sure is going to do a PhD study on this at some point about the levels of attention deficit and anxiety linked to maybe lack of being in nature and lack of activity, and your body needs to move around. And I know you include that as part of your framework, right? Because you have quite a frame. I was reading about your framework that I think is really cool. So can you describe your framework on how you help people be healthy, happy?
Yeah. So I have a framework that has 5 pillars in it. And if you picture a visual diagram with 5 circles, there's one circle in the middle and then the other four around that circle, but everything overlaps, a bit like a Venn diagram.
Right.
And the middle circle is the mindset, because everything we do starts with the mindset. And I talk about there being no end either. It's not like job done with any of this, but certainly not with your mindset. You always have to work on the mindset and how you feel, how you think, those beliefs. We're ever evolving as we go through different seasons and stages of our lives. So the mindset sits in the middle, and then around that, you have movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress. And I picked those 5 because they are absolutely fundamental to having good health and strong well-being. There's other things that come into play, like relationships and your environment and your financial circumstances and so on. But those 5 are ultimately what you need as like the real solid foundations. If you imagine a building, they're what you need to then add on to. But those 5 are very intrinsically linked as well to one another. So if you use, for example, movement,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about that, if you aren't fueling your body in a good way through what you eat and drink, you're going to struggle to have the energy to move or to get the best from whatever it might be you do in form of exercise. Think about sleep. If you're not moving your body and you're not being active, then you might struggle with sleep. A lot of people do, if they're very sedentary during the day, if they don't get outside and have fresh air and expose themselves to nature, it can really impact your sleep. Likewise, if you aren't sleeping well, it's going to impact your ability to be motivated to move and have the energy to move and really get the best out of a workout. And then the same with stress. Exercise is something that really supports your stress levels. But when you are overstressed, again, that can hinder your performance when you're moving out and your desire to do it and so on. And then with your mindset, the same, kind of connection back and forth, in that if you don't believe that you're somebody who can exercise, then you're going to struggle to build that as a habit and to embed that in who you are. reversing that back. If you aren't working out, you can really struggle with how you feel and think about yourself, and really pull yourself down. Whereas when you are exercising, it releases them endorphins, and you get the happy hormones floating around, and that can really lift your mood, and give a lot of positive input to your mindset. So all of those five things are really linked together, and you need to have a very good balance to feel good. And that balance looks very different from one person to the next, because it's about who you are and what you're trying to achieve for yourself in your life as well.
And it's also, I mean, because when I talk to clients, it's like, what are the circumstances? What's the reality going on for you? And then how can you put, and I mean, we're talking habits as well, but how can you put habits in place that will support you in, if this is where you are right now, and maybe it's a job or a business or whatever, and how can you have that as part of your life, but incorporate all the rest of the things to make you healthy. And it's true, if you don't sleep, oh my gosh, you're not going to want to do anything. You're going to be in a bad mood and you're going to feel terrible. So it's hard to even be motivated to do things if you're not
Mm.
resting. And if you're not resting, you're not feeling well. And I mean, they are definitely, I can see, and it's that balancing game. Like, and
Mm.
it's also true, like some people can feel like, it's like, oh, it's like, why even bother? Like they've almost given up hope. But if you can improve one, like it, because it just feels overwhelming. If you can
Yeah.
improve one, it will overflow into the rest, right?
Yeah, because they do all have that knock-on effect onto one another. And part of what my mission is to normalize healthy habits, and what health is about. So my podcast is really about unwrapping what being healthy is and what it looks like, because especially for women, there's a misconception that being healthy is about being a certain size and shape.
Oh,
Women
yes.
fixate on the number on the scale, or the number on the dress they're wearing, and that's what they believe is you know the problem when they don't feel good. And so a lot of women approach getting healthy by going on a diet, and they want to fix the problem they've got by switching their diet up, and maybe alongside that going to the gym, or it's usually one or the other. They're going to go to the gym to lose weight, or they're going to go on a diet, lose weight, or maybe understand they do a bit of both.
And maybe
But this,
overdo it even,
yeah,
you know.
because they start out with thinking it's like a fix. It's, I've got to do it and then I can go back to
Mm.
normal. It's that it's a means to an end. It's, I go on a diet, I lose the weight, I feel good, phew, job done. Or I go to the gym for a bit, I start lose weight, I feel better, job done, back to normal. Don't need to do that anymore. And obviously that's not the reality. And you know, they focus on those things either together, or in isolation, but don't look at everything else. And everyone I've worked with who has come to me with a weight loss goal ends up where that goal is not about the weight loss, the number anymore. It might include weight as a part of that, but it's often more based on wanting to create a healthier lifestyle because of how being healthy makes you feel. And being healthy, for some people who are overweight, does involve losing weight, but it's not about a goal just being, I want to lose X number on the scales. And that's what I'm really trying to help people see, is that it's about these five things together. And those things might impact your job, your relationship, you as a parent, even how you manage your finances. Lots of things are actually part and parcel of how good you feel. But focusing on those five pillars really does change people's lives, because even if you start eating really healthy, you might not feel happy, because you could have really poor sleep still, because you've got a lot of things you constantly battling within yourself. That a lot of self negative talk, lack of self belief and lower worth, and things like that. So that's why a lot of people struggle because they start out with something like a weight loss goal and think that's the answer to being healthy. And they might lose the weight, but then because they don't feel the way they want to feel, they think, well, what's the point? I'll just go back to eating pizza and, drinking lots of wine because I felt better then.
Right.
At least I felt like I was enjoying doing something. So it's really about getting clear on who you want to be, how you want your life to be, and why that's important to you. And that's what actually starts those habit changes and building new habits.
And I think sometimes people, I mean, they think to be happier, I need to be, like you were saying, I mean, you said it, I need to be a size 6 or something,
Mm-hmm.
I have to be this. And it is so true when they do get there, they, it's not, it doesn't necessarily fix anything. You're still going to be unhappy. And even if you are happier and you just flip back to your old life, well, then you will end back in that cycle again. That's why the diet industry can't put itself out of business, right? It's because it's not addressing. And
Mm-hmm.
what I think is interesting is when I talk to clients often, they'll complain about like, I think for some people it can feel overwhelming. You mean I have to eat healthy my whole life? It's like, well, it's not actually a chore, but sometimes I'll joke with people, yes, having a body is a full-time job, and
Mm-hmm.
you take better care of your car than your body, but you can trade your car in, you can't trade your body in, so you need to take care of it. And I mean, I don't know how do you address when people just give that despair that it's I have to do this forever.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is really embodying who it is you want to become. And when I start talking about this, it can often sound a bit like, the whole fake it till you make it, pretend to be somebody else. And eventually you'll think you're that somebody else. But it's not. It's about really tapping in to the way you want to feel in your life. Because the reality is, we all have one life. And as you said, we've all got one body. You are the only thing that is the constant in your life. That's it. You are going to be with you for your whole life, and you have to invest in your mind and body to live the life you want. And I think that's where a lot of people fail in how they're living and feeling, about their life, because they haven't put the two together. It seems so obvious, but you don't realize that, the results you get out come from what you put in, and it's your mind and body that are creating that output. So it's really starting off with getting clear about, how do you want your life to be? What would that feel like for you? Why is that important? Why does it matter to you? Asking a lot of questions like that, and it's deep work, really tapping into, when you get to the end of your life and you look back, what is it that would have happened to make you lie there in your deathbed and go, yeah, that's what I wanted my life to be like. I enjoyed that. And like I say, it sounds deep. And initially, when I started talking about it, I felt as though, even in my head, it sounded morbid, but it's not. It's actually very empowering, because people forget that. And I talk a lot about my favorite book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Right.
Where people have those regrets, and it takes until the very end for them to go, I wish I'd allowed myself to be happier. I wish I'd worked less, and have those regrets too late. And instead, let's be empowered by the fact that we can take charge and ownership of our life and how we want it to be. And instead of waiting and looking back with regrets, let's get proactive now and go, what do I want my life to be like? Because so many people are juggling the balls, spinning the plates, just trying to get on with everything and do it all, but are constantly battling with these, unhappy thoughts, feelings, desires that they wish their life was a different way. So, people can think, yeah, it's just too hard. It's how do I keep it up? But again, this is the mindset shift, because typically the way people approach getting healthy is by um it's from a place of restriction and denial. So I'm not going to be able to have that anymore. I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. I don't start with what do you not want. I start with what do you want? How do you want it to be? And then what's standing in your way of that? And I share my life, and I drink wine, and I have pizza, and I eat chocolate, and there's nights where I stay up late, and things that other people might say is bad habits. But it's not, it's just that's life. It's just that I know I live primarily with a focus of giving myself what I need to feel as healthy as I need to, or want to be. Could I be healthier? Yes, absolutely. Is that something I can manage in my life the way it is now and how I want to be right now? No, but that might evolve over time. But the thing is, I'm satisfied that I am living in a way that is respecting my mind and body and how I want to feel. And, that's something that's achievable being a single parent, running my own business, being, perimenopausal in just past mid 40s, so you've got to put everything together. And I think that's what the shift is in how I coach people is it's not about what you can't have, it's about how you want to live and finding what works for you. And when you accept that, that in itself starts to breed your value in yourself, the self-worth, the self-belief, it lifts your confidence and so on, because you start to feel strong because you actually know what you want, and you're making decisions to live that way.
Well, and it is so true. If you don't know why you want to do something, or what you want to feel or be like, then the decisions that you make about how you live might not even be your decisions. They might be, oh, the latest social media influencer said everyone should try this cleanse, so I'm going to do this cleanse and that's going to make me feel better. Well, no, maybe it's not. It might. Who knows? Um, but it's true. Like if you don't, if take that time, and I guess people are always, not always, people are often looking for just give me the quick answer, tell me what to do so I can get on with things. But I feel like once you begin, at the begin, it's scary. I know for some people it's quite scary. I mean, that's why I coach people, because sometimes you just want someone there to tell you you're not going crazy, right? It's like, it's okay, we got you, we got you. Um, and taking that honest look at yourself, sometimes people don't want to do that, so they'll stay unhappy, so not to see something they don't want to see, or take responsibility for their own well-being, which I'm a big proponent of. You are the boss of you, and no matter how many self-help books or people that you ask, you've still got, there's a coach I know who says, I can't do the push-ups for you. You've got to do the push-ups. But taking that look at yourself and knowing how you want to feel and how you want your life to be, and believing that you can actually do it. Like the thing, it is possible.
Mm.
And once you start, I think the hardest part is the beginning, right? And maybe you can tell me what your thought on that is. The hardest part is the beginning, is the, like when people start exercising at the beginning, it's like, oh, painful. But once, I could just remember way back in
Mm.
the day, but once you get going and it becomes a habit, you stop thinking about, it's just, you just do it because it's part of who
Yeah.
you are. So you've built that new habit, and it's become part of your persona. And there's a coach that I know who compares it to smoking. He says, do you smoke? And you, in your head, you answer. He goes, if you identify yourself as a smoker, you don't even think about it, you're a smoker. If you don't
Mm.
smoke, you don't even think about it, you're a non-smoker. Are you someone who moves? Then you're just someone who moves and exercises. It's not a chore to think about doing it. Have you ever used that kind of analogy? Or
Yeah, that's exactly what I do use. I talk about, embodying the person you want to become now. So again, this is back to flipping it from, oh, I can't have pizza, I can't eat sweets, I'm on a diet, into I am a person who is healthy and
yeah,
enjoys taking care of themselves through nutritious food, something like that. And then you make decisions from that place. So, when you are maybe deciding to order a takeaway and you've already had one takeaway that week, for example, and you know it's not the healthiest choice you're going to make, you ask yourself, is that what this person would do? Does Nicola, who takes care of her body and likes to feel good and strong, want to have this second takeaway this week? No. And the thing is that it's intentional to think and operate in that way initially, as you say, when you get started. But then that no longer becomes a question you have to ask yourself, because it becomes who you are, because you train yourself that isn't the choice you're going to make. And so, with habits, that's the way that you start to build them up, is you start very, very small, and you start from that place of, where it is you want to get to, but you focus just on the simple steps. Because where a lot of people fail at the very beginning or early in their journey to change is that they're focused only on that great big goal. And I describe that as a mountain. So if you were going to climb a mountain, say someone's going to climb Everest, they don't just turn up at Everest and look up at it and start to climb it and see where they get to, do they? There's a process of training yourself to get fit, to get the right equipment, to learn about the weather, the conditions, experiences of others and what's happened on their journeys, and so on. That's the same with your goal. You have the goal, so you're going to climb Everest, we'll use that example, but then you start with really simple steps. So, what can I do this week? What is going to help me in 12 months or 24 months to climb Everest? And you make the actions those simple steps, in small chunks, or monthly action goals and actions, and weekly actions, and the steps, the things that you start with and you work from each day. Because you get overwhelmed. You use the exercise example. Somebody starts out and they think, oh God, this is so hard. I feel absolutely knackered. I'm huffing and puffing. I didn't enjoy it. How am I ever going to keep this up? If you start to climb Everest straight away, you'd think like that as well. You'd be like,
Yeah.
there's no way I'm going to get to the top. I'm just going to give up right now. It's too cold. It's too hard. So, you can't go all in straight away. And again, that's where a coach is very different to doing it alone, because you break it down and you just get so clear on why you want to do it, and you build from very simple small steps that enable you to feel success. And I talk a lot about the importance of reflection, of recognizing what progress you make, and then rewarding yourself, because you need that to drive motivation. Motivation doesn't come from willpower. Motivation comes from that intrinsic reward you're going to feel when you are doing something that you want to do and getting the results you want. And that's how habits are formed. You start small, it has to be repetitive, it has to be consistent, but that comes through the motivation you give yourself by knowing why you're doing it and how you want to feel. And so obviously there's lots of things you can do, and tools to support yourself to stay anchored to that why, and then keep going and reflecting and recognizing and rewarding yourself so that you want to do more of it.
And we do forget to reward ourselves for, like, we're always chasing that carrot out in front of us, and that's where I'm going, that's where I'm going. We forget sometimes to go, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. I've actually achieved this and this and this, and giving yourself credit for that, which I always encourage people to take a moment. Even if it's like a milestone of, like, I said I would do this, I did it. That doesn't mean you should run out and have a bottle of wine or anything. But
Yeah, exactly. And people think rewards have to be a tangible thing, but just as you say, that verbal pat on the back or whatever that might look like for you, to just reward yourself and acknowledge it. Because something that I hear a lot from clients, especially at the start of their journey, is they beat themselves up like, oh God, I only worked out twice, or I only managed to do this. And it's like, okay, and what's wrong with that?
yeah.
Because again, they've got that big mountain right in front of them, and they're like, but I want to do the 5 workouts a week and I want to feel great. Is that really going to happen straight away when you haven't worked out for 2 years?
And you won't
Well,
feel
yeah, but I
good.
want it. And that's the only way I'm going to get the results. No, the way you're going to get the results is to make sure that becomes who you are and stays as who you are for the rest of your life. You don't start there and then that's the way it's going to stick, in your
Yeah.
in your routine and lifestyle. So yeah, it's definitely important to reward yourself in whatever way that looks like for you, and that could be sharing it with someone, with a friend, a partner, on social media even.
Right.
Journaling's a really good thing. I like to just lie in bed on a night and I just have a bit of a replay of the day and think, what went well today? What did I do today? What am I proud of? I do journal sometimes. It's not something I've been able to build as a daily habit in terms of writing it down. I do sometimes write, but I like to just do it more, internally on an evening, and I do a little bit on a morning as well for the day ahead. But things like that are very powerful as well. Just pausing and practicing some self compassion is very, very powerful stuff.
And the two sides to the coin, I mean, celebrate what you did do and don't give yourself a hard time about
Mm,
what you perceive as failing, right? It's like things happen. Like, did you do your best to be responsible to yourself and take the actions that you wanted and then let the
yeah.
rest go,
And
right?
that's a big piece. You know that as a coach, even when someone is making progress, it can really hinder what the impact of that progress can be because of all of those limiting beliefs they still have about themselves and the way they talk to themselves. And that's a big piece of what I talk about a lot on my socials is, being your own cheerleader and supporter and being there for yourself, showing that self compassion and kindness to yourself ultimately. Because, when you are beating yourself up and telling yourself that you're not good enough because you didn't do X, Y, Z, that's offsetting some of those really helpful habits that you've started to build. And that's why, those 5 pillars are also intrinsically linked and centered around the mindset because you really, really do need to build a growth, positive, solid mindset
Yeah.
and make sure that you are your number one fan, essentially.
And it takes time to exercise those muscles. So
Yeah. And
it's
that's the
okay.
thing, it is a muscle, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
you can change it at any age. People say, this is just who I am. I can't change it, I'm too old. No.
That's not true. So not true. And people change over time. It's just that you live inside yourself and you don't see it, how far you've even changed yourself. So
Mm.
you're not always stuck where you are. What is your podcast called for our listener peoples out here?
It's live healthy now.
Live Healthy Now. Is it on the usual podcast places?
Yeah, it's on all of the main podcast platforms and the videos on YouTube as well, if you prefer
Oh,
to watch.
excellent, excellent. And for people to reach out and contact you, everything will be in the show notes. But I see something about a 5 day challenge in the links. What's that all about?
Yeah, so one of the things that I find hold people back right at the start of wanting to change their lifestyle and get healthier is either that they say they haven't got enough time or that they just don't have that self belief to start. It's, what we talked about. I'm just who I am, I'm stuck here. So the 5 day challenge is called Win Your Worth. You sign up for it with your email, and then you'll get 5 days worth of coaching, tools, inspiration into your email box to do yourself. Lovely little workbooks, and it really gets you reflecting on exactly what we've talked about with why you want to change, what it means to you, and starting to take those small steps so that by the end of the 5 days you can see that you can do it because you've started to take some action and you've reflected on it and you've recognized and rewarded yourself, so that you've got that springboard to move forward from. If you want to go further in your journey, either alone or with a coach, that you've built that belief that you can start to change your life and you can make your life one that will bring you the happiness you're striving for.
And those first 5 steps, if you can just take 5 little steps, you'll be 5 steps ahead, right? That's
Exactly.
brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. But I always ask at the end, do you have a final word of wisdom for everyone?
Oh, that's a good one. So
Ooh,
many things.
I know, I know.
I think what I would probably say is about self care, because self care is very misunderstood. And this is a huge thing. And it links to a lot of what we've talked about with, self compassion and kindness and so on. Is every day think about how you are caring for yourself. And don't think of self-care in terms of having a bath, lighting a candle, reading a book. Yet all of those things can come into self-care. But the biggest form of self-care is having that value for yourself. And so really think about how you speak to yourself and support yourself every day as a starting point. Don't think about having to go to the gym or suddenly having to change your whole diet, the big things that you can build up to over time. Just really consider caring for you by being your supporter, by being a coach almost to yourself. And I think that's something that shocks people, because when they start to listen to that voice in their head intentionally and hear what it's saying and think, would I say this to somebody else? It's quite scary, the way that you treat yourself. So, consider what self-care really is every day by being your own supporter and coach and best friend.
That's brilliant. I totally 100% agree. 110%. I try to encourage people always to really examine what self-care is, and it's not bubble baths. Although I do enjoy a good bubble bath, but
Me too.
not every day. Not every day. Thank you so much for coming and joining us and sharing all of this with everyone. Thank you so much. And I hope I get to connect with you again in the future. I'm going to check out your podcast. I'm going to invite all of my friends to check out the podcast, to check out the 5-day challenge. Who doesn't love a good challenge? I love challenges and I love quizzes. I can't help myself, right?
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks so much for having me, Heather.
Thank you. And thank you guys out there. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and we will see you again next time. Take care. Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Just give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help, and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, you can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.